All right, in the meantime, I want to go to General Jack Keane, get his reaction to all of this. General, you probably had a chance to hear what a lot of those congressmen, or the three of them, had to say about where things are going. Is there any doubt in your mind that if there is a change on Capitol Hill, that Ukraine should be worried? This sort of unchecked support would wane or be tested?
Well, I think that there's bipartisan support among the American people for the effort to support the Ukrainians in their fight for liberty and freedom. I think that'll continue in the new Congress. Certainly, there will be people, as there is normally, that will challenge spending, and also those who don't believe we should be there in the first place. But nonetheless, I think the overwhelming bipartisan support will continue, even if there's a switch from Democratic to Republican control. Just a couple of days ago, Leader McConnell, I apologize, if he becomes the majority leader, he just issued a statement that he wants to increase the aid to Ukraine, and he's criticizing the administration for it not being timely enough, something many of us have been critical of. So I think going forward, by and large, that support will continue.
The only reason I mention it, General, you know, I've gotten into this before, but being the business nerd here at Fox, I mean, I report on all these countries, NATO countries, Western countries, who to a country are saying, you know, or hedging a little bit. And owing to the environment, inflation, and, you know, their bad economies, I can understand it. But does it worry you collectively?
Well, listen, I've been pretty surprised by the European resolve and steadfastness here. By and large, they have stepped up. We're providing over 75% of the support, given that we have the stockpile of weapons and ammunitions. Many of them do not. But also, many of them have stepped up, too, and actually cut to the bone. I mean, Poland is actually giving up tanks and fighting vehicles from their operational units. One of their leaders came and spoke to me in Washington about it and how steadfast they were in it. He said, General, the war that we knew we were going to fight with the Russians in years to come, we are fighting now, and the Ukrainians are doing all the fighting. That's why we're going to give them the equipment to help defeat that army now, so we don't have to fight it later. And I think that's the basic principle behind what NATO is doing here. Let's end this war in Ukraine with the defeat of the Russian military that will set them back many years and deny them the strategic ambition that Putin has always had, Neil, and that's to retake some of the former Soviet republics that are now part of NATO. And that has always been the underlying concern.
You know, General, I'm no weapons expert, so I'll always defer to you. But these Iranian drones or something like out of a science fiction movie. I didn't know they had the capability, expertise, where they got it from, anyone's guess. But they've been deadly. They've been lethal. The Russians have a lot of them. They've been using them with abandon. What do you make of them?
Well, first of all, some of that technology they got from us when they shot some of our drones down, and they were, you know, able to obviously reverse engineer it and figure out how to do some of this. These are the same drones that they've actually used against Israel, the Hezbollah working it, and also the Houthis against Saudi Arabia. There's about an 80-pound warhead in this thing, in the nose of it, and it flies to the target. It can loiter while it searches for the target, and then the operator will designate it and fly it into the target, and then explodes upon contact. It's quite devastating. I mean, wow. The explosive isn't as large as some others that we have, but nonetheless, it is devastating. And I think here's another concern we have, is there's talk now that the Iranians are going to provide the Russians with ballistic missiles. The problem the Russians have, Neil, is they're running out of their cruise missiles and their precision-guided munitions per se, and their stockpile has been exhausted to about 80%, is what I'm led to believe. And they would normally just go ahead and replenish that. But here's a place where the sanctions are actually working, because many of the parts that they use to build these missiles come from imports. And also some of those parts come from the United States, and that's being denied them. So they can't replenish, and they're going to the Iranians to get them to compensate. And I think we should take a real hard nose, Neil, with the Iranians here. Walk away from the nuclear deal because of what has taken place here. Double down on the sanctions, not just the sanctions against the manufacturers, but the overall sanctions on Iranians. And let's step up and support the protesters more that have taken place now over 40 days, over 100 cities that are ongoing inside Iran by people who want their freedom.
General, always good catching up with you and getting the latest on what's going on and the latest concerns you have about what's going on. General Jack Keane on all of that.